Well, of course, there is a lot of conversation now about the future of the life issue. In the aftermath of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, this does become a very localized battle, state by state, community by community. And even here, in our own backyard, where we have one of the most pro-life governors in the country, one of the most pro-life legislatures in the country, still, there is an attempt to create an underground market for the killing of children, as my oldest daughter, Anastasia, recently discovered. Watch this.
Abortion doula training, which I'll define later on, was held on Saturday, July 9th, online from 12 to 4 by the Iowa Jane Collective. The Jane Collective was started back in the day when abortions were illegal, but when you quote-unquote called Jane, they would come to your house performing an illegal abortion on you for free. Now they hold abortion doula training right inside the comfort of your own home. According to the Iowa Jane Collective, an abortion doula is defined as a person who provides compassionate and non-judgmental support through an abortion experience. Well, lucky for you, this Saturday I had nothing to do, so I took that training so you didn't have to. The host of this event is Frida, whose pronouns are they, them, and lucky for you, she is not certified, but you don't have to be to become an abortion doula.
When we talk about abortion, we're talking about the deliberate termination of a pregnancy. Pregnancy tissue can refer to a zygote, an embryo, a fetus, a placenta, an umbilical cord, or any other type of tissue that grows in the uterus during pregnancy. A fetus, the medical definition is like the tissue of a pregnancy that grows past 8 weeks gestational age. Before that, it is considered an embryo. A baby or child, using that sort of language, contains connotations of personhood. So when I talk about abortion, I talk about pregnancy tissue. It's not wrong for somebody to use the words baby or child when they're talking about a pregnancy, but like you don't necessarily want to be using language that your client might be uncomfortable with. Always important to like mirror your client's language and check in. Of course, we'll talk more about that later.
This may seem very graphic to you, but what you are seeing on your screen, or if you are listening at home, is a slideshow of DIY, do-it-yourself abortions. Yes, you heard me correctly. And what the cost of those and the step-by-step process is, something I did not include in this slideshow because I find it too graphic simply, is manually vacuuming your baby out. Yes, you heard me correct. Manually vacuuming your baby out at home. The last slide talks about hyperthermia, which in the training they describe as essentially overheating your body, overexerting it so that the baby dies.
Is like truly like the person that you're talking to would support any option, any outcome of a pregnancy, right? And we know that like crisis pregnancy centers have an agenda and want to see a specific outcome.
I visited some of these crisis pregnancy centers, and don't even get me started about their hidden agendas. Such a hidden agenda, offering services for free. How dare they?
Feminism in the U.S. in general, and just like there's a lot of like U.S. chauvinism in the fact that like self-managed abortions, including medication abortions, are like extremely common in other countries.
Who you just heard from was only one person out of the 130 people who joined that training on that Saturday. That is 130 people who are not qualified, who do not have certificates, but who are bringing abortions and performing abortions to a neighbor near you. Now, what you are seeing on your screen is a note that the Iowa Jane Collective includes in all of their DIY abortions, saying, "Thank you so much for making the best decision for you," you being underlined. "We are sure it was hard, but we are so proud of you." When you think about it, what are they proud of? I guess they're proud of murdering your baby.
So that report from my oldest daughter, Anastasia, who is here with us, outstanding job with that, frankly, gruesome information, sweetie.
Thank you.
Before I go to you, though, I want to get to the reaction of the gentleman here because they have not yet seen this video. So, Todd and Aaron, your thoughts. Did you even know what this was? I did not know what this was until Anna brought this to me last week. I'd never heard of this ever.
Safe, legal, and rare, Steve, right? Yeah, I know what, as a veteran of home birthing, where, you know, you let the kid live, I know what a doula is. So, as you've said many times on the show, Steve, that the devil's exploits are always this dark, dark reflection. Is it shocking in the least that we have something called abortion doulas? Of course not.
Aaron, what were your thoughts the first time you watched this?
Well, fellow pregnancy tissues, the bowels of hell opened up, and that's what we just heard. That self-do-it or DIY vacuuming.
Sit in a sauna. Did you see the writing on that one? Hey, you sit in the sauna at the gym for too long to overheat your body. Did you see that?
Kind of speechless. I mean, I was too, man. We had a doula for our son's birth, and when Anna sent this over the weekend and messaged me, "Hey, I sent it," I was like, "Abortion? What are you like?" Both Bella and I were like, I was like, "What the heck is abortion doula?" And so I said that out loud to Bella, and I was like, "Okay, well, we'll figure out later in the week." It is, as Todd said, it's everything hell does is almost always an upside down version, upside down, inside out version of the good, the true, and the beautiful. The imagery that I see is like what you see in Stranger Things, the upside down there, where it's just a kind of a creepy.
Denotes a concept of personhood. She said it out loud.
Yes. Again, Socrates, Plato, the Socratic dialogue, they were not Christians, but they were ultimately about the things you can't help but know. And Downs has been about the search for truth, the battles between Catholicism and Protestantism, the scientific method. Ultimately is about the search. They're making it so it's impossible. Yeah. And that will be the death of the West.
We're not able to include in the video because of length and other factors. And I want to ask you about those here. What is likely for most of us, our most important investments, our own home, because they can be tampered with. The crime is called home title theft because your home deeds are often kept online. That makes them susceptible to scammers and grifters and hackers. And before you know it, you might have a case like a recent Arizona real estate agent went to work one day, checked the MLS for the latest listing, saw their own home on the MLS, and realized they were not. Doesn't do that. But Home Title Lock does, and you can check them out right now at HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com, and get 30 free days of protection when you use the code RADIO at HomeTitleLock.com. All right, so they have an aftercare program as part of this Jane initiative. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the training, it talks a lot about how basically after you've murdered your baby, they talk about holding a funeral for that baby, so playing music, having a ceremony, possibly writing a note to your lost baby, basically just holding a funeral, which I found very odd because they talked a lot about pregnancy tissue and
zygotes,
and how it's not, make sure you use the right language, you don't want to offend anyone, so how can we hold a funeral for somebody who was never alive?
Right.
Was my question. I had a lot of questions I didn't ask. I chose not to ask in that 4-hour training.
That what you just summed up there is the equivalent of.
Are we depressed? Yes. Why is it a difficult choice? Why was it hard? If it's all the things you are claiming it is, then why would I regret this? Why would it be difficult? And what would we popped? Since I was about your age, the other day. And after I popped it, the only thing I regretted is the fact it bled so much I had to put a Band-Aid on it. But I didn't have pangs of guilt about
the vision of blood and amniotic fluid and as well. So
along those lines, in the Old Testament, what drew the final wrath of God on ancient Israel that led them to the diaspora, to being exiled from the Holy Land for a long time, was they went down into the valley of Ben Hinnom and cast their babies into the fire for the demon pagan god Moloch, or Moloch, depending on how you pronounce or spell it. And while this was going on, there would be to guarantee a harvest. You would not hear the screams of the babies because loud drums would pound the entire time to drown out, not lose their nerve and say, we can't do this. Okay, the blood curdling going to be a part of. I thought about that when you told me that a little bit.
Yeah, so for abortion doulas and the women themselves
you cut your senses off from the reality of what you're doing.
Yes, especially when they tell you, like on Amazon, they give you like an Amazon link where you can go do it at home, and they encourage you to put a blindfold on, put headphones on, while someone who is not medically trained, someone who does not have a certificate, puts a vacuum and they have to go back in soon later and continue to vacuum it up, because that can be trying to do abortions on themselves at home who are not medically trained, have no herbals, sat in the saunas and all that, and it's failed, and so they've had to save a lot of lives from trainings like this.
It's funny, mind meld, Todd. When it comes to the jab, how many times have the modern medicine is more closely related to like an Amazon witch doctor than it is actual medicine? We should have seen that coming, because at the heart of it, whether or not it's performed in a nice sanitary room at a Planned Parenthood or this, it's the same thing. It's voodoo. It's just abject voodoo. Aaron's razor, it's just demonic, bro. This is what Tucker Carlson was talking about this weekend as well, where nobody is making any choices, doing anything for the good of anyone, even themselves. That's when you know it's demonic. None of this is a positive outcome, obviously, for any of the parties involved.
We're about out of time, Princess. That was phenomenal work. Thank you very much.